part of the Leo kingdom.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, Leo King, and we are here live for After Dark on highvibe.tv, where we discuss, right now at least for this subject, the after show of Deep Astrology and what I just spoke about in the astrology. I'm sitting here with Sarah Paasch to my right and your left, and I'm sitting here with the awesome Dylan, the spirit advisor, to my left. And these two are on the High Vibe Lightworker School. They have awesome courses, which you can check out at highvibe.tv and click on Lightworker School. How are you both doing tonight?
Excellent.
Yeah, doing
Excited
really
to
good.
be here.
So when I finished the show, and I just finished, it was interesting to hear, I got like a weird noises. What were those noises about?
Oh, yeah. Well, you made the noise, Sarah, so.
Shoot, yeah. Well, I think it wasn't like a thought out sound effect that I made, but it was because the show was like calling out, you know, just how intense June's set up to be. And it was like, oh man, like it's not fucking around, to put it lightly.
Seriously.
Well, I want to tell everybody, Sarah's an amazing astrologer, and Dylan's an amazing human design, and both of them do also everything in the spiritual spectrum. But I would say, you know, strong point, would you say, well, you do shadow work, but would you say it's astrology and shadow work that really?
Yeah.
And then with you, Dylan, I would say human design is one of your main.
Yeah, that's my
Course.
lens that I'm looking through.
So my question to you is, how do you observe the times we're in right now? Because I just did the astrology. What's the human design saying about this?
Yeah, good question. So this week, we're starting off this kind of, as I see it, like a wormhole towards the eclipse season. And it's actually because we're in this gate 35, which is actually the gate of progress. In Gene Keys, it's known as, in its lower frequency, the gate of hunger. And so this is where humanity is always looking to satiate that inner emptiness with an external solution or an external stimulus or more food, more sex, more experience. So it's about taking the perspective of having experience for experience's sake, which is very Gemini, just like like variety and like let's just go in all these different directions at once to see what happens. And it's actually about taking that it's about taking that search for experience and bringing it on the inside. And it actually has to do deeply with the production of serotonin, and it's all based through tryptophan. So when we are always looking for that next stimulus to give us that burst of serotonin, then we're always hungry. We're always just going from one experience to the next it's kind of pointless, you know, because you don't remember these things. These aren't lasting experiences that stick with you and change you as a person.
Very kind of North Node or Rahu, Mars kind of vibe, I feel from
Yeah, like just hungry ghost, devouring things, but does it matter? Does it actually have to do with your soul? And so how do we deal with this? We take that external search for gratification and we realize that it will never take us to where we believe it'll take us, so we have to take it on the inside. We have to make that journey towards progress, towards fulfillment, towards actually satiating our human need. We have to take it on the inside. It has to be an inside job. So it has to be something that springs forth from us being deeply connected to ourselves first. And then the experiences that we do go for actually have lasting impact on us because they're being motivated from a soul depth rather than a mental place, which is very fleeting. So, yeah.
How do you feel about that with the shadow work that you do, Sarah, in connection to what he just said, and especially since you know the astrology so well?
Yeah. Well, I think what first comes to mind is he said the word progress. And I think about how we're conditioned to view progress in like this linear fashion. And I feel like the astrology is set up in this way, and even this next week coming up, talking about these obstacles or these like blocks or barriers that are gonna be coming in, or like things aren't working out the way we had them in this like perfect plan. it's actually showing us where we get in our own way, where like our limiting idea of what progress or success means prevents us from really reaping the reward of the experience. And like to Dylan's point, it's not about the end goal, the outcome, that reward at the end of the thing. If we're doing something that's actually driven from heart, driven from purpose, driven for soul meaning. So if we get that unexpected kind of like failure, so to speak, then we're going to have shown to us very quickly where we had these hidden motivations, these hidden expectations or attachments to things that were ego driven and not clearly motivated. They weren't truly like aligned to our heart.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like a pirate going out for just treasure, and if you notice, it's always the most hard trip, and they don't find the treasure, and then, you know, like, I don't know.
Yeah, and then it's just like a hamster wheel kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I think with the Pluto-Saturn South Node aspect that's going on, I feel like those forces are going to be like, oh, you're half-assing your timelines? Yank! And they're just going to like take everything that doesn't really resonate with people so that they have that residual energy to come back and plug it back into what takes us into our center and gives us those meaningful connections in our life to experiences that actually matter. Because if we look at it as hunger is the shadow frequency, then we can take it up to the gift frequency, and this is kind of referencing Gene Keys, of adventure. Because when your heart is in the right place, then every moment, every experience you step into with an open heart becomes an adventure of discovering how you influence the world when you're in alignment with love, and vice versa.
And when you're not coming from a place of lack or insecurity.
Exactly.
So I think that's the other thing, is like that kind of like you're already filled just by being on the journey, the adventure of doing what you love and creating what you love to create. And yeah, if you feel like lack in the outcome of it, you're missing so much more. Yeah.
Well, I think that you both bring up this really interesting thing about going internal. I like the limiting beliefs and the limiting aspects in ourselves, because I feel like then Dylan brings that there's these experiences we have, this hunger, but like we do have to go inside and process really what is going to bring us to the gifts, because it can look like gifts, I feel like. But
Absolutely.
I think that South Node Pluto and with the South Node there, it's a delusional kind of negative gift that's also presenting itself at the same time. But you almost kind of have to go there to know too. I think that's the whole weird thing about
Totally.
consciousness and unconsciousness.
Did that.
Yeah.
And with Neptune being the
That's-
major
yeah.
point of this major cross,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a weird thing, is we all kind of are tasting the unconscious apple.
And there's a smorgasbord of unconscious experiences that are just
To choose from.
beckoning to us to be like, yeah, come on, this is
Great
where
variety.
it is.
Yeah.
And I've been experiencing that just with like my life. I've been like invited to do very many different things, and it's like they all have this dangling carrot aspect to them, like, you know, the next big doorway is here. Come hang out with us. You know, bring your light over here, and we'll take you to new places. And it's like, every door that I've opened like that was just like you were talking about earlier, there's like something creepy on the other side.
I know.
Like it was like,
Like, what is that?
what is that?
But then there's a gift in that same doorway too. You just have to discern yourself really
Totally.
well. Somebody just brought up a good question I want to ask both of you. It's from Tiffany Powers. Are all of these transits going to be affecting karmic cycles? I want to get Sarah your take first on this, what you feel about karmic cycles, and then I want to get Dylan's as well.
Yeah, actually what I do think about, this is making me think about something else I was thinking about karmic cycles, is the idea that something failed or is being taken away from us. I think the Jupiter-Neptune, the Saturn-Neptune, this second transit that's happening this month out of the total 3 of the year, is like this midway point of the full 3, right? And it's like this check-in. And the first one, like we said, you know, Jupiter, Neptune, it feels like infinite possibilities. It feels like a smorgasbord of just like gifts for you, you know, for everyone. And so really I feel like with the sextile to Saturn, the challenge is, can you have a sacred no? Like, can you have the ownership of yourself, the value of your own choices, to be like not afraid to say no, to know that there's like a bigger yes? So I feel like right now, things that are not aligned to our dharma, to our true purpose, to the thing that we are meant to create, that big creation, if we've been working on it and all of a sudden it falls through karmically, it's a washout because it's like it wasn't aligned in the first place. And we probably knew that deep down earlier, but we said yes because we were afraid to say no. That's how I'm seeing it anyways. I think that this month is a huge kind of like realignment and readjustment, and the universe is at play. Like, it's working. And so if something's being taken away, it's like, let the door close, man. Like, where is it rerouting you? Where is it, if it's stopping you, why is it stopping you? Is it slowing you down? Is it you stopping you? Or maybe it's really like, maybe it's not all up to us. You know what I mean? And that ego kind of thing.
Yeah, how do you view all that, Dylan?
Yeah, I think with the current placements in the sky, it's like if it does turn out to be a paper tiger moment, it's actually asking you to dream bigger. Like if those small hungers are not being satiated by what you're manifesting right now, consider that a huge gift from Jupiter, the great benefic, that in Sagittarius is just going to be like, if you can dream it, here are the keys. You know?
Yeah.
So if something falls short or falls apart or burns down or blows up or skips town, whatever, you know, just be like, well, you're gonna have to grieve a little bit. We have to acknowledge the grieving process of our dreams, but then it's like, okay, where can I take this? Like, where can I take me when I'm listening to my heart's intelligence, not just my 3D base level hunger, desire, wanting? Because that's karmic.
I feel like I got the image of you literally, like somebody doing like a sketch on a piece of paper, like writing a first draft of something and like ripping the page off and crumpling up and like throwing it. And there's like all of these scattered piles of these like rough drafts, but now you're just sitting at this like blank page. And so this, are you gonna write the same draft? Like, are you gonna rewrite the same story? You can, it's a blank page, sure, that's terrifying because it's so open-ended, it's like there's nothing, but that's also where the potential lives.
Yeah.
Is like in that space.
Yeah, and I feel like with karmic cycles or dealing with a lot of, whether it's past life, we can connect that to karmic cycles, or there's this other part I like how you bring up where it's kind of out of our kind of control. Like there is maybe even like a creator source karmic cycle like connection that goes maybe beyond what we can scope at the moment, but we can feel it. Is that it's this internal part of ourselves that are going through these stories. This is this Jupiter-Neptune thing, in my opinion. It's like, okay, I'm in this story, but Jupiter needs to look at it from so many angles. So it's like, it's got to look at the whole thing. Because if we just automatically determine this is bad or this isn't the way it should be and then just throw it away and not go through the experience fully, which is really bringing in this gate, this gene key that you talk about. It's kind of interesting to me that we have to go through every angle of everything, and it's going to be flip-floppy because it's kind of contradicting to what we thought at one time, and then we go through it again, and that's the only way to, I think, go to pure consciousness is full version of understanding all aspects of things. Where I think we haven't had a time in our history as humanity or even in our lives with these kind of cycles to where it's like, you know, I usually can go through a cycle, whether it's a karmic relationship or a karmic job, or, you know, it's pretty simple. It's like, okay, yeah, that didn't work, bye-bye. But I feel like right now they're like, whoa, I said goodbye, or wait, now I'm over here and I don't know. And then you got to go back, or then you got to try it from a different angle and then go back. And there's a lot of this. These are not simple karmic cycles that are just like a light switch, I feel, at the moment.
I just got the coolest image from what you just said, where it's like, we always talk about karmic contracts and cycles, like they close and like they wash out and there's a new one. But what if we have like multiple contracts with one person and we actually can't get to the next level of that contract until we move past this contract? So it's like closing the cycle by like not going back to old patterns. The dynamics have to change, but that doesn't necessarily mean like the entire situation or the entire relationship is a close.
Right.
But that level of contract is,
Definitely.
it's completed. So now, and I'm also seeing that there's like now it's making me think of other friends and relationships where these souls are in contract, it's so obvious, and they've completed it, and one person's ready to move forward and the other person's not. And that's where it's like you have to continue your soul contract. Like, we can't drag people with us. And Mars in Cancer opposed Saturn, Pluto, South Node in Capricorn feels a little bit like I'm, unconsciously need to drag you with me. There's like that attachment, and it's like, but we can't. Like, that's where free will comes in, and we have to keep moving forward. It has to be a leadership, not, an ownership or like a attached thing.
Yeah, and human design, and I think that some people who don't know it, I mean, you're mixing gene keys or I Ching, the chakra system, and astrology, and there's even a lot more to it, the human body, there's so much. You're really like the all-in-one center, of so many different connections. When it comes to relationships or even, let's say, jobs or anything dealing with karmic cycles, how in human design is it that you can help understand these cycles to either know if it's done or know if it's not? I don't know. This is a kind of an interesting, weird, kind of open-ended question.
I was actually already thinking about how I would address that, because a lot of how I look at things through human design is that we're in a very special window here, and I don't think many people realize it. But the work, as far as civilization goes, has been done. And we kind of see that mirrored in the Pluto-Saturn kind of like already setting up the next foundation in a way that is so massive and so like pervasive that we can't really see it. But the window that we're in, karmically, is one where we really get to be who we are this lifetime. We don't have as much duty, as much restriction, as much just entanglement with other people as we have in previous epochs. This is really the time when we can get really clear and really centered on how amazingly unique we are and our consciousness is, and just go all the way with that. So I think in terms of karmic cycle, I think it's important to be sure that what even is a karmic cycle.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not completely sure right now.
I don't think anybody has the master understanding of that.
Yeah, and then also realizing especially this week with this gate of progress, it starts in the lower level of hunger. It can become an adventure when you tune into your heart more. But where do we get to the progress of it? I mean, when we really go out and live every moment in full self-love. So what does that really mean? It's not that I'm just like, oh, I'm the best. It's more like, no, I am coming into every moment as my 100% full self, body and soul, and that puts me at a frequency that changes everything I walk into. Yeah. Maybe if I'm just at the hunger level, it is going to link me in karmically with somebody, and I have to play that out for 7 more years until I learn that lesson. But we have this really cool ability in today's world, and as the beings that we are, to get so synced up with our unique frequency that it can, just by being us, shift a whole karmic cycle that would otherwise have been a drag.
Yeah.
So it's more about that quantum leap essence of living from our total radical truth sometimes, where people don't understand because we're so unique, but it takes us somewhere never before seen, and that's what's so special about this window.
This reminds me of a couple things with technology. Like 5G is a big thing everybody's talking about, because I love how you say we're done with the civilization kind of thing, because think about it. Nobody gives a F about 5G. Nobody needs a fast. I don't know. I haven't met one person yet that I've talked to, even people who aren't spiritual or whatever, that are like, I cannot wait for 5G. Like, we all are like, it's fast enough. It's fine.
We're overwhelmed.
Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 are out of the solar system in interstellar space. So we've sent capsules out into the outer, and who knows what's going to happen, because they die off, and in 2025, Voyager 2 will lose its power to be able to communicate with us. We look at, I went to Best Buy this weekend, and it was like, there's nothing in here I even want to buy. Like, everything's kind of reaching this apex point of like, it's done. Like, society, cars, people. It's like we're all getting to a place where it's like,
yes, and that's that whole
like what
whole idea of the hunger. The external is totally like losing its luster, and we're realizing as a collective that we're gonna have to do some internal work to take this journey of life to a new level. It's not something we can even find externally anymore.
Well, I want to bring this point up. It reminds me of how, the earth is 75% water, 25% land, and how we know practically nothing about the 75% of the ocean. So, but we know more about space, which is this infinite space, literally, than we know about our own ocean and what's really going on down there and how it really functions. We're afraid to go deep there. And what's so crazy is this big square to Neptune, which rules the oceans, which is the ruler of the sea king, and rules this oceanic energy and this psychic energy, is forcing us all to kind of like go, well, okay, we've looked up all the way, we've done this in civilization, but there's this huge ocean that we all are terrified to go deep into. I mean, most people I know, I was in the military as a rescue swimmer. 70% of my class in boot camp before I went to rescue swimming school couldn't swim. Like, they couldn't jump off the little diving board and then swim the lap. So then they had to take 2 weeks to learn how to swim. It made me go, wow, I grew up swimming, but I guess that's the thing. But I think whenever, you take people into the ocean, it's like, oh my gosh, with the waves, people start to go, no, I'm okay. Or you take somebody out on a boat 40 miles out and they start going, There's that weirdness about this deep internal space that we really have not gone anywhere into deeply yet.
Right. And I feel like that's the mind. I think that's the mental perspective of the unknown, which is immediately threatening to survival, which makes us want to stop short. And I think, like, even if you think of the sea, the space, or like even the unexplored depths of your own mind, like there's always more that we're not seeing. We don't even know our full brain capacity, what it can do. So it's like the unknown and this fear of the unknown is looking back at us everywhere we look now. So we're going to have to get better tools to like engage with it.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Sarah? You were really revved up.
I was.
Yeah, I felt like it.
Um,
Libra rising.
No,
Wait, hold on.
I was like really into the symbolism. I was like, that is so rich. The depth. And I think it ties back into shadow work, and it ties back into what you were saying about how Dylan was saying about this is really the time to really just be your true self and like we've never had before. And I think it used to actually be threatening to go into the depths of shadow work, because when you did go in and you found your true self and you exposed that, you actually were rejected to a point of survival, being threatened.
Right.
And so I think now it's like really waking up to the fact that it's not like that anymore. Yes, you might lose a false sense of belonging to a relationship that's inauthentic. Yes, that might happen. There might be a period of time where like you feel alone. But after that, the like rich depth that you find and the connections, like that is what we gain. And there's no longer, killings for being different from the group. Like there's no longer one group and then an outsider. There's so many people now and there's so much diversity, and it's like there is somebody for everybody. Yeah, it's just so rich. I think it's beautiful that you brought that up.
Yeah, we got another question here. And actually, Abby just sent us this from the chat. Abby is one of the co-founders and owners here at highvibe.tv. Can you go further into not waiting for the universe to give us answers and having to show up and make an exchange? What do you mean by an exchange has to happen? So I guess this question is like, where's the point to where the universe has given us enough answers and where we have to show up and make that exchange with it? And also, I want to get your guys' opinions on what do you even think of an exchange between your conscious self and I guess whether we call that the universe or source or whatever.
First thing that comes to mind is, that's another thing about this special window that we're living in, is that we are all waking up, whether we realize it or not, to the fact that we're all part of the same thing. And that's a big deal when we're thinking about something like exchange. It's like we're becoming into more conscious connection with all life every day. It's just like the download bar is getting up there in terms of us dawning into a really new, really rich, really multifaceted and unexplored way of like looking at life. In that everything has a consciousness. This crystal, even this couch, you know? So I think if you're waiting for life to give you hints on when to take the next step, they're all around you. You just need to really, check your expectations and your previous beliefs that might be framing out what's trying to come and speak to you about what your next step might be. Because it's there. It is definitely there, 100%. So just a matter of where you're looking, I think.
Yeah, what do you feel, Sarah, about that?
The word that comes to mind when I think of like exchange in that context is surrender and resiliency, and this kind of like deterministic quality of, if you say this is your intention to align to this dharma or this purpose or this path or this wish, let's say you put a wish out, then that comes with showing, that's where Saturn's medicine comes in and gives us benefit, right, and pays off, is that reward of persistence and consistency and like every day show up. How bad do you want it? You know what I mean? And that means surrender. Surrender the here and now, what seems to be going against you, egoically, whatever you can perceive in the moment. Surrender and exchange your trust for what you can't see, what you can't imagine, what you can't possibly come up with on your own, because you're not God or the universe or whatever, and show up anyways. Like that's the exchange I think, at least I'm still always brought to bear with. It's like, that's the exchange, is like, put your head down, keep your heart open, and like show up.
Yeah, it reminds me of Pangea. Like,
What's that?
do you know Pangea?
No.
Pangea was the Earth at one time. If you look at all the continents, 7 continents were all one together, and then they split apart, right? And I don't know why I got this, because when Dylan had said, you know, I agree with him, especially with this like merging kind of. We're all realizing we're all part of the same thing, or it's like, and I feel like exchange is immersion right now. That it reminds me of Pangea, where the continent's separated, but it's so weird when you look at, like, let's say Africa, Western Africa is connected to where kind of the Panama was, and part of like where Florida is, and, you know, the whole like, you know, eastern part of South America. And when you see like the whole Pangea thing, it's like, really there's been this contraction on Earth, but I think also in the universe of like separatism to figure out its own kind of self. And I feel like we're turning this corner. The Mayan calendar says it with the 2012 alignments. The astrology just keeps getting more where it's like, this is too rare to happen. Like every week I do the show, I'm like, what? This is like this is too rare. And I've talked to, I go to all the United Astrology conferences in the last, 6 years. And it's like the last 2 where you meet 3,000 astrologers. And when you talk to them all, they're like, yeah, I've never seen this before. And you'll talk to an astrologer who's been doing it for 50 years and be like, yeah, I've never seen it like this before. And you're like, what's going on? And I think that it's like we're showing up just as much as Source is showing up to try and merge. And this brings to Sarah's point, especially with, this kind of immersion of relationships. Like that's like this gift, like this, like all this weird stuff, like all coming to find the true form and showing up and finding it is, I think, the ultimate relationship. So many people are with this twin, soul thing and all this stuff. And I'm not putting that stuff down because a lot of people think I do. But I'm just saying that I think it really is that the ultimate relationship is this immersion effect going on with this source energy that we are part of, and learning to come back together, like how all the continents might come back together. Because in astrology, we have tropical, we have sidereal. We notice there's this tilt, this 23.5 degrees. So we base everything off these 2 different systems and forms. But at some point, it all comes back into perfect alignment. So that's how the universe seems to work, And
that is such a Gemini season realization to have, because it's like we're looking at either the fragmented mind or the unified mind. And I feel like that's in my view of Gemini, those are the two extremes they live on, is like that, just like rapid fire kind of energy.
That one twin that you just kind of are like, gosh, why did you come out now?
Right.
Or ever.
and then there's like that purity that Gemini can be, that like diamond energy, when they really when everything unifies and synthesizes back together, and there's just that beautiful amplification of light that can come like in a
like
prism.
2 deers running through the forest, like and skipping and jumping. Like, that's the positive and the beauty of Gemini to me.
Yeah.
You know, and finding the likeness within each other. Not that they're exact twins, but I think twin energy of Gemini is seeing what is in common with one another and taking that form and seeing that they are one, but not exactly still the same one.
Yes.
Right, still having an appreciation for the differences.
Right.
Even though they're technically like the same. And I think that's what Gemini gives us as well, is this appreciation for differences. For like, if you tell Gemini it is this way, the first thing they're going to do is like, are you that there's another way?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we have to do with our own mind and our own perception of what's happening, is if we're getting fixed in this vision of something going wrong or being the only way, like now is the time to open your mind. Now is the time to invite in more than just 2 ways of looking at something, and to really like lean on each other. I mean, this Cancer North Node is like, there's so much sovereignty in the astrology, but it's also about collaboration, like conscious collaboration and connection, and really like having the goodwill for everybody and being on the same team. And like, I think that this is the time to do that, to ask more questions, get curious, lean in when the universe is like talking back. Maybe it's just talking back. What if the universe is just like, there's an easier way?
Yeah. So a little off subject here, but we were getting some questions like Anunnaki talk to...
I got a download about that today.
Well, let's hear it. I want to hear it. Let's go.
I was just sitting in my room, and I was just getting this download.
This is Dylan's life.
It is. It
I
is.
love it.
And I wasn't expecting this. But I actually saw, this is so random, but I actually saw Atlantis and what it was. And it was kind of like the natural progression of the Earth's consciousness as it was beginning to diversify and kind of form its own sacred ecosystem. And the Anunnaki, if you guys don't know, are kind of like these very high frequency, but very egoic beings that were part of the formative creation of mankind. So Earth was doing its thing, Atlantis was like popping off, it was like this sacred ecosystem, and a lot of the life on Earth wasn't yet physical, but it was still evolving in a non-physical way, with kind of Gaia as the hub. And then the Anunnakis came in with Nibiru, which is their living spaceship planet kind of thing, and in their conquest to sustain their own life past their expiration date, they came to Earth and used the last of their gold to try and start gold mining operations to fuel their ship, basically. And in doing so, they created humanity, and they ran out of steam before they could fully get what they needed. And so Anunnaki consciousness kind of went dormant and drifted off in this really long orbit, which you can Google. There's like this ninth planet. But we were just kind of the leftover, and this is what we've made of it, is like we've just been dealing with beings in consciousness with this immense resource-rich planet before us, with this leftover residue of this huge ego of these beings that thought they were gods. And we're still having to deal with the repercussions of that like God complex and the after effects of conquest and how it's ravaged our planet and taken it out of balance with itself. And that's where the light workers come in, you know? That's where we as light workers are here to embody a new set of values that can bring more light onto this planet so that we don't have to relive the story of our forefathers.
Well, there's this whole story, too, of that they took the human, or the Lumerian form of human, I guess you could say, right? Like the original Palladian, Lemurian element of like superhuman, right? Like the superhuman beings that are out there, and genetically engineered humans on the earth to be the miners of the gold, basically the slaves. It's interesting. I like your story and how it kind of drifts off. It kind of leaves humanity as these genetically engineered to kind of turn off, because a lot of in the Palladian teachings about the Anunnaki is like, we have a 12-strand DNA system, but as like they have found scientifically, like only a couple strands are usually working. Then there's the whole brain thing, which we can go on left. There's so many different versions. Some people say we're not using the full brain. Some people say that's bullshit, right? So, but there's this aspect of like, I would say like this container that's been on humanity.
Right.
And I think that it's being brought up so much because the container's being opened, and there's a fear in the conscious community of Nibiru coming back and to destroy us again. Like you bring up this consciousness of this egoic destroying, capitalistic, especially during this Pluto-Saturn stuff right now, right? Of while we're breaking, of course, it would be a natural fear, maybe even genetically engineered, that, hey, we're coming to get you, to almost just hold people from actually stepping into the true superhuman form, which I think that these quote unquote wannabe like gods, which really are more of these egotistical gods that you say, are terrified of true superhumans, because we don't want to be gods. Like in that sense, we want to be bringing out light and love and petting animals and hanging out and pushing these amazing emotional
Coming
worlds.
together.
Yeah. And I think that there's a subconscious fear of them coming back as we are breaking their genetic construction that no longer can be held. It's very matrixy kind of,
Yeah, I think like the first time that you ride your bike without training wheels, are you a little nervous? Yeah, of course. You might scrape your knee. You might break your skull open. Who knows? But I think that, humanity is facing a similar dilemma, because we're like, oh, that was really comfy. Like the whole like, okay, this is what I do. This is how I get what I think I need, want, will fulfill me. And as we fuse more with spirit, that's becoming obvious on some level to most people that it's just not going to cut it.
Yeah.
But we're like, okay, then what do we do? Like, that's
What do we do, Sarah? Capricorn in the house.
I would say, for my opinion, I would say like, I don't know all the stuff you guys are talking about, but like the symbolism, the archetype of the egoic Naki, is that what you called it?
Anunnaki.
The egoic part though, like being afraid that if we show up, then it will
Punish us.
show up. Okay, I would say the astrology and just the collective consciousness right now, I would say it's here. I would say that to pretend like we aren't sitting in that right now is denial. And I would say it's here. It's here. And I would say it takes a conscious commitment every day to like see it, the thought as like thought forms. You can see the thought forms come in that are just like out of left field.
Right.
That are exactly what you were saying. They're so fear-based, they're so capitalist, they're so trying to like stop. And I feel like it's kind of what Dylan's saying. What if we just take this like lighthearted approach to just accepting and almost inviting it to come as this like lighthearted sign that we're about to learn how to ride a bike. But it's like learning how to ride a collective, just way higher ascended consciousness.
a fully embodied human,
right,
with no slave blinders on left over from our Anunnaki programming. And that's the potential that's here. That's the age we're living in.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so exciting, and that's why people are showing up and doing the light work, because we need role models, we need tools, we need conversations to make that trench that looks like we're approaching less scary.
Which all the light worker is just bringing the flashlight and showing what looks like a trench and being like, look at it, it's a wide open room and there's a million, like there's nothing there. Oh, okay, I'm okay now.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know, like that's the whole, it's all fear. It's like so much just fear.
And just think back into your family lines, like of all the people that have ever lived to allow you to get to be here now, that couldn't do what they wanted to do,
Yeah.
you know, that had to live under someone else's rule or someone else's thumb, or a belief system that robbed them of their liberty and freedom. Like all of that golden chain of DNA that's brought you here to this point, not to repeat it,
Right.
not to like squander this moment and this energy and this body and this consciousness on another karmic cycle of not really living up to our full
Right.
potential. So I think,
Or for your Instagram.
right, which is just another way of controlling us in a way.
It is.
Yeah.
It's another box to sit in.
It's just another trap.
Right. So
It's another wheel, rat race wheel. And you said that, like, when you said Saturn, Pluto, South Node, and Deep Astrology tonight, you mentioned, like, are you going to just get on the wheel? And I think right now, collectively, like, we're all in Saturn, Pluto, South Node, and Capricorn. So if you think you're getting away from being on some wheel unconsciously, like, check yourself. Like, there's probably a good chance there might be a wheel that tempts you that we get on and we have to get off, you know? But yeah, just like, what's driving us right now? Like, really, like, instinctually, is it motivated from a place of fear, or is it coming from that place of, like, abundance and trust and faith or love or whatever any of those emotions are? I think that's so funny.
Well, you bring up a great point about this wheel, because in the spiritual community, you know, I like how you bring up, it's like, hey, like, don't think that, you know, you're out of this thing. We all have it, because even just like saying I'm not going to watch TV, I'm going to go live, you know, off the grid or whatever, is a wheel itself of like, I'm creating this space because it's terrifying to be over there, and kind of creating a wheel itself. There's a wheel within a wheel all over the place right now. And I think all the Cancer is saying is like, this place is actually more safe than you realize. Like, you know? I like how you bring up the golden chain of the ancestors, because, I think that we don't want to be the ones that kind of continue those stories, like, in
they're
that
cheering
sense.
you on. They're like,
And that's in African culture, all of all their shamans are about, the first thing is what they're here to tell you, what your ancestors are here to tell you.
Yeah.
And I was today, when Sarah came in, she saw my office. She's like, "Oh, this looks so good. What are all these old books?" And all my family lineage is dropped in my life right now from the Mayflower. I showed her all the Mayflower documents, both on my dad's side, my grandmother and my grandfather, both the Palmer and the Grill family were on the Mayflower. And I have all the documents and all the lineage connecting that stops in 1968, where basically my great aunt, who passed away in the 90s, she stopped the work because people were still alive. But it all has left on me. So I'm kind of in this weird space of going through my lineage, and I busted out crying. Sunday night, I was here alone filming all the horoscopes, and I had to redo that because I had to pull it all out of the boxes and bring it out and honor them and go, there's a reason why all this has kind of landed on me. And I do want to change the story, and I do want to continue it too, though. It's a weird kind of complex, right? Like, it's not like about stopping it, because if we bring up karmic cycles, maybe there's some karmic cycles that aren't meant to stop, but be shifted in how they cycle themselves.
Right. You want to do something that's in...
That'd be like saying, well, the karmic cycle of the sun is done, and let's just have no sun. Like, no.
That's not going to happen for a while.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen for a while.
I think, too, like, if you go back to the very first thing Dylan said about this gate, and you said wormhole, you said that word. And the image that was coming to me, too, is like this month, this lunar cycle, is technically like the dark phase before the next eclipse season.
Yes.
Right? So it's also like this, the veil feels very thin in this like crossover from lineages, from cycles, from like, we are in that place of transition where it's so dark, it's all been done, and now as we go into this next cycle, like, we can only bring what needs to be brought, and some of that is consciousness. So it's not like throwing away everything that's happened, but the wisdom that we've gained from the experience, the history, the honor, like, there's so much there. And I think about those golden chains when you said that, the image was like, they were bright and charged and like huge, and it's just energy. So when that energy is transmuted and transformed, that power that's channeled into this new cycle, I mean, that's what it's all about, you know? And like, that's what's there. Like, that's what's waiting for us. Just waiting and begging us to please, like, say yes. Take that leap. It will be scary. You might fall off the training wheels and scab your knee. But
that's normal.
That's normal. It's the adventure.
Like our audio situation.
Yeah, our audio
when
situation.
we start something new, there's difficulty at the beginning, but it's not ever as difficult as we think it's going to be before we start. So if we let that stop us from starting, then we're just still living in fear and illusion.
Driving, I don't care how great of a driver you are at the beginning or everything. Especially, you know, we live here in the city in Southern California. We have the craziest freeways, right? We have 6 to 7 lanes on just the freeway. And then the other side has that many lanes. So I remember got my license, and I took my friends, and I had just turned 18, and I actually got my license at 18. I waited. And freaking, of course, I didn't take driving school. I just went to the permit, and then the next day you have to have the permit for one day, and then you can take the test and get your license. And I passed the test, and then I passed the driving test, and then boom, I got in the car, and it was like we were 18, so it was like we're all going to the strip club. So I'm like driving them, going down the freeway, and like don't know how to pass people in cars and stuff, like going 80 miles an hour at night, you know. And they're like, dude, like let me drive, and I'm like, oh God, but those little lessons there, you know. Now, like we're so subconscious in our wheel of subconsciousness, like people, like let's be honest, you all are checking your Instagram, your email, you're checking things on your phone while you're driving, even if it is on the thing, you know, whatever it is, like the holder, like, and just like driving 70 miles an hour down the freeway and just drinking and looking at your eye, or you look at, you know, it's like that's how crazy the subconscious like track is, so natural. Or riding a bike is the best one. Because even, you know, Albert Hoffman, who created LSD accidentally, it was the first thing he did when he took LSD is he went on a bicycle ride. Because he was able to notice, there's a lot to that story. But, and the freak out, imagine creating LSD and tripping out, and nobody else can do it with you but yourself. And you're on a bicycle.
So flash forward to 2019, everyone's on LSD now. We're all tripping. And we're all...
That's what I've said for years about this whole 2012. And CERN. Actually, I want to ask your guys' opinion about CERN, which is the collider of atoms that they're trying to find the God particle.
This is so perfect.
That 2012 is when they started it, and it's the same year of 2012 and the Mayan calendar shift. And I've had a belief that they actually were coincided together as when they did start smashing particles, that actually there's a lot of theories that I would say I have I'm still skeptical, but I am more on the leaning side of it being true, that we did enter another dimensional reality shift, kind of like Sliders or any of those old shows. It's all looks the same. It's still... You know how to do everything, but there's something that feels different.
Since which day?
Since like the 2012 and this whole CERN, the collider, and you know, this other half of, I guess you could say, our counterpart to what we do to discover the universe, which is to go smash particles together.
Well, I could go all the way into this rabbit hole, but I don't think that's good for right now. But what I can say is that it does, again, in my personal opinion, remind me of this idea of hunger. Humanity's hunger for that meaningful experience, willing to threaten all of existence by smashing particles together in order to find something that finally makes it all worth it, finally makes it all make sense. And I think that's unnecessary, quite frankly. I think that whole thing is just like, come on, guys. Like, let's play racquetball. Like, let's do something like human. You know, let's not try and like rip our planet apart just so we can maybe do something cool that we probably won't even know how to handle if we were to actually accomplish it. Right. So for me, CERN, too much.
Too much.
Yeah, and it's also like Jupiter and Sagittarius. This is about the human journey. Right? And so what you're saying, I don't know anything about what you guys are talking about, but I do, but the symbolism and thinking about it in terms of like, yeah, we're trying to find something to transcend this experience, but coming back to the oceans and coming back to the depths, it's like we have yet to penetrate the transcendence of the present moment. Like we have yet to master what it means to really, to just be joy, not find it, not buy it, not make it, but like really carry it, spread it, and like just need nothing to just enjoy this entire human experience. Like to me, it's like, why aren't we trying to figure that out? Why is it that we're so caught up in thinking, I want to get that job because that's going to get me to what I want? Like, why not? Why aren't we hungry for like the non-attachment to all of this shit that controls us? Like, oh, it just feels so liberating to just to live that way, to live life fully in it and enjoying it, and to not buy any idea that there's something wrong or like that we're not safe, that we're not taken care of. It's like, we came here, like we're here, so be here, like figure out how to like it and like live it and like make it great, not by making things collide and blowing up the whole thing. And I don't know.
This is, I mean, I want to go, we're going to go a little alien here again. So, and then we'll kind of ask one more question and then we'll finish this up. But this alien question is definitely, so I did an interview at the United Astrology Conference last year with Michael Luton. And there was an asteroid that came in 2017, it's a Hawaiian name, it's Oumuamua. But basically NASA came out and said that this is not a normal. What is it?
Haumea?
No, it's called Oumuamua.
Okay.
Came in 2017, passed by Earth, but it's not in the shape of a natural asteroid. It's obviously from some sort of, and it's created. It's created.
Yeah.
But it kind of like did a little pass through and looked at us. And then Michael Luton was saying in the interview, and I mean, I have to rewatch it, but he was telling me how he had papers sent to him from NASA on how all the old civilizations that have always, whenever they start to reach out to look for life outside of Earth, is usually when their end comes as well. So I'm wondering what you guys feel about that. And actually it ties into what Sarah was just saying about just enjoy this place, gosh darn it. Like, you know, like what's the, but I mean, we also are human design, astrologers, spiritual, so there is this quest inside of us of wanting to know more. We can't deny that. So it's like, where is that fine line? And why is it that maybe these civilizations that were very advanced have disappeared? And also it's ironic that there is no information about it really anywhere in the media. I go to Barnes and Nobles and it's literally about every autobiography about somebody that did something that really didn't give a lot of information about things, if that makes sense.
So what's the question?
Just the question of how far does this quest go to where does it take us too far? And connecting that with there is all these ancient civilizations. I mean, you were just down, well, you guys just did a Costa Rica retreat. You were just down in Tulum recently.
Lots of aliens down there.
So it's like there's all these sacred sites, there's all these sacred, I guess you could say, are they our ancestors or are they not? Or I just wanted to get your guys' opinion about that in both ways. How far is too far? And what's up with all these ancient civilizations? I just want to get your guys' take. Who wants to go first?
Too far. Like you're in a marriage for 20 years and then you start looking at other people. You know, like humanity, humans in general, we always get to this space where the experience that we've committed to doesn't turn out the way that we've expected it to. So then we go and seek greater answers, seek greater fulfillment. And I think that the golden opportunity, like we've been saying, of this age is to see that just to be here in this body with this mind, body, spirit complex that we all have, you know, it is the adventure itself. You know, we think that the adventure is outside of us, but that is the illusion that's painted by only living from a mental place, I think. I think people on this planet as a whole are way too up in the mind, not enough in the heart, ignoring the emotions, repressing the emotions, which actually your emotions are the gateway to your spirit speaking to you.
Yeah.
So I think that there's so much redistribution of our emphasis of how we even look at life that's taking place so that we can have a more holistic view of the now, which has the potential to fulfill all of our wildest dreams. But if we never show up to the now, then yeah, we're always going to be building out on to extreme thin ice until it snaps off and we fall through and freeze to death, like the Roman Empire did, crippled itself, and how every great empire does, because yes, conquest is short-sighted. You know, this like back to the hunger idea. It's short-sighted. It doesn't know what it's looking for, but that's because it's not rooted in the full breadth of conscious potential that we have. So I think we're just learning how to flesh out our full conscious potential on multiple levels, multiple dimensions, multiple
Well, do you think
facets.
the Egyptians and the Mayans got too hungry?
I think that, well, that's, you know, it's a multifaceted answer, because I think that a lot of the traditions that made those civilizations great were based on universal concepts that are timeless and that we can adopt right here and now and have better lives because of. But I also think that there are hierarchies to those civilizations that inevitably led to their downfall, because that's what happens with hierarchies.
Yeah.
When the power gets too concentrated in one direction, the universe comes in to rebalance that.
True that.
Time and time again. And I think that we might have a chance to not have to repeat that karmic cycle now, because more and more people are waking up in a way that is energetic. It's not about necessarily concepts as much anymore. It's about something that's sweeping through us all and activating us. And I think it's just more about knowing what to do with that in today's world than having to do something new and better and more advanced than ever before.
Right. Sarah.
Yeah, I actually just agree a lot with that. I think too far, and this is so perfect for Gemini season to be having this conversation, by the way. I think too far is when it's limiting, when it's actually limiting you and it's trapping you in a way that's like you're looking for an answer. Or if there's too far is also like I am waking up and I know so much, and because of that I have this like inability to deal with such and such or so and so. So like the arrogance is still introduced. And so anytime where there's harm or separation, violence, judgment, blame, anything that becomes rationalized or justified based off of a higher knowing, that's no longer higher. That's egotistical, right? That's an abuse or a misuse of power. And the other thing that came to me was when you talked about all these records and how like we can't find them and you can't search them. Again, back to 75% water and how we don't know the ocean, we don't go to the depths. I think that as we continue to get still and go within and find more just curiosity about our own inner mind, our own inner workings, the depth of knowledge that lives inside of us is like we hold all of those books and
The golden chain,
the libraries. I mean, the amount of ancient wisdom that lives within us and within nature and within that. It's like you don't have to go far to get it, but you might have to be still and quiet for longer than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
One day a week. But I mean, and our culture's not set up in a way to support that. So I think naming that for what it is too, like it takes courage to be like, and rebellion almost, to like get still or to step off the wheel to do something in a way that hasn't been done before. It's not about going too far. I think that's the other thing, is if we're aligned with spirit wants us to go far. It wants us to build things. It wants us to grow and have, the pleasure of that. Having more is also part of the pleasure of a human life. It's just when we're attached to it that we lose it. And Uranus and Taurus is gonna help us all realize that. You can manifest anything. But
and those have crazy places that it can manifest. The 30s manifested some weird stuff.
yeah.
But I agree with you. I think the too far thing is really when, when you guys woke up and you went on your spiritual journey, we all kind of go too far with it, right? Where it's like, okay, you look at this book, now you're watching this documentary, now you're doing this, now you're looking in this old text, now you're doing this, now you're doing this reading, and then you get to a point to where it's like you don't stop on that journey. But I think that there's also kind of like this isn't all that just defines me. There's other things that you have to kind of mix in. Because I notice a lot of people when they go through their awakenings, they go through dark nights of the soul because either it's Kundalini awakening that's really too hard and intense to deal with, or it's a brain fry from the brain trying to receive all this emotional, spiritual, outer intuitive information that it can't freaking handle, because in school they just teach you 2 + 2 is 4, and
you blow those circuits.
What locker is the best locker to have, like that you get this like, wait, what? So I feel like it's like you have to get to a place, and I think that's the rite of passage through this, and I think that's why a lot of people are terrified as well as, and why I think in old texts there's so much of this fear of this, whether we call it consciousness or a cult or anything, because of course when you go there, it's going to feel like terrifying because it's feelings you never felt before, it's emotions you haven't felt, it's mind thoughts that can't process it fully yet. And once you get through that rite of passage and you keep going on the path, you can't be so obsessive about it either, to where that's like all you do, because then you never are in the reality as well. Like, I think that this is a big counterbalance of reality and rootedness in self, of spiritual self, but also of just enjoy of the now self. And I don't believe that actually, I actually believe that the civilizations, that the ancient ones came down to kind of help with the awakening, and that maybe their cycle was, okay, we did our job, because there's a lot of proof of it kind of like showing up and then like purposely kind of like, yep, and it's always timed with the ages too, like, okay, but here we are at a new age, and it seems like there isn't a centralized kind of knowing on Earth right now. There is in the lower realms, I'd say, but in the higher realms, we're creating that naturally, which I think hasn't happened before. I think it's been the opposite. Like, people congruing in the lower realms was like, what the hell? But now that's what is like the weird normal. And it's like people that are trying to congrue and create this massive, amazing new world in the higher realms, people are looking at that like, that's crazy. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? I don't know. It's kind of a weird way to look at it.
No, I think it's a good way to look at it. And I think that there are definite cycles that the planet has been through and will continue to go through. And for instance, in tracking cycles with human design, 2027, we're 8 years from there, is the end of the cycle of planning. And this is the cycle that's been in place since 1781. So the
year Washington, D.C. was founded, and that Washington went to D.C. and founded it. And that was a crazy grid.
Yeah, and it's all about the gridding of the planet and institutions of government and healthcare and, armies and borders and all that left brain strategic stuff taking over the planet and making the planet a place where billions of people could be born. Because before that, everyone was like, the turnover was pretty quick. You died at like 30 or 50, if you were lucky. Now, because of institution and the cross of planning, we have so many new genetic possibilities because of the mixing and the just safety that's afforded. So that's taken place. We have all these potentials running around, going in every which way. Some are going to fly, others aren't. That's nature and life. But as we move into 2027 and beyond, the emphasis is no longer on how big, how shared, how tribal can we make this planet of ours, but rather it becomes about individual spirit and individual survival, which sounds scary at first, but it's not, because individual survival is always going to be interdependent. No one's surviving on their own in this world. We're all going to have to rely on each other, but it's going to be from a place that's rooted more in our individual embodied knowing of guidance, of what our next step of destiny is, as opposed to that other person's unique step of destiny. And the people that naturally find that congruent path with each other, that becomes the new kind of unit that the world is built on. And it's a much smaller unit than the ones we're used to. So it is scary to see these big structures coming down all around us in a very kind of slow speed, come apart way. But it's not that we're being left with nothing. There's a whole new sense waking up inside of us that's going to be here to guide us to the cooperative forces that are going to make life
Very Aquarian.
better than ever. Yes, totally Aquarian. Absolutely.
And I don't know why I got the term and it's not a term I like, but it's kind of like militias, but flipping that term and not even the same meaning of what a militia is, but groups that all kind of come together in a smaller form that have a similar individual understanding, that they know that they can rely on that person to do their job, and they do their thing and form these little hubs.
But also, I think a shared spirit as well.
Yeah,
and that can mean
and it kind of goes back to some tribal stuff, especially I always think about African tribes, like Native American tribes kind of really went kind of against each other sometimes, and
they were gnarly.
They battled against each other. Like African tribes really kind of were we're over here and we're doing this, and that's what we do.
Yeah.
That feels so Cancer North Node, Capricorn South Node duality. Shifting from this place
Back
of
to the astrology.
huge structures and systems that we've all grouped together, and then that's been how we've built society. And now we're shifting into these little hubs, these little families, little soul families, little light worker families, whatever. But we're all in Cancer way starting something very fresh and infantile. We're nurturing something into existence in this way that none of us have really done it before, but together, one person couldn't do it. We need each other. We need that family unit. Yeah.
And I think, this whole idea of home being our countries.
Right. It's a new way to
It
self-identify.
reminds me of Eddie Izzard. He's a hilarious comedian.
He's awesome, yeah.
And I love his whole thing about a flag. Well, it's he'd put a flag in, and then it's well, this is our country now. And it's what do you mean? I live here. It's do you have a flag?
Yeah.
No. Well, it's ours now. You know what I mean? So it's I think that whole notion, we identify home now or whatever. It's I'm American or I'm this or da-da-da. It's kind of maybe that's all shifting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're seeing how thin that material of that flag is.
And I think the spiritual community as well, we call it a community, but I don't think it's defined as a community, because I don't think it really does have its own home, because there is a lot of homes.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be different perceptions, and there's going to be different things. And it's and maybe one day there will really be, but I think that we've seen a lot of challenges in religious organizations creating homes and then going against that one and going against this one. And then it's oh my gosh. There's got to be some sort of individual survival or flexibility, too, of understanding the individuality of other people, while you can only do that if you understand that in yourself,
Mm-hmm. And Gemini, like we were saying, like Sarah was saying, it gives us the grounds to be tolerant of other people's extremes and welcome them into the mix of life, knowing that we all have a special role to play here. And it's an interdependent future and now that we're living in. So if we didn't have those extremes, we might not have what we need. Every extreme offers its own gift.
True. Well, I think the best way to it's true. The best way to end this is, there was a question in here of just how to everybody's opinion on how to deal with this energy right now. I thought that was a good way to kind of end this show. What do you think, Sarah? How do you think the best way to deal with the energy of right now is?
I think it's really important to stay connected to like your people.
Define people.
Okay, the people who are willing to like call you out when maybe you're coming off biased or, you know, keeping yourself small. Whatever, your people are the people who will call you out and will lift you up, you know, call you forward and like hold you when you just need to be held. It's like they can do both. So those people who are in, okay, here it is. The people who are in the arena with you. Like Brene Brown's book, she talks about, you know, courage is the vulnerability to be in the arena, to actually be the one. So the people who are in the arena with you, who are showing up, doing it with you, and to stay connected to nature, to do whatever kind of daily practice you have to do to keep yourself connected to your core truth, to the ability to tune in and hear what feels true for you, what, you know, like tuning into that guidance, I think is just so powerful right now, so important. And to just like stay light with it, to make and create and like draw on humor and lightheartedness and use that kind of innocence of Gemini to like not take ourselves too seriously right now, not take anything too seriously, as much as we can to really trust, you know, everything that's happening. Is it falling apart? Maybe it's falling together, you know, like just, can we laugh at ourselves? Can we laugh about the fact that we were like stoked to start this show and all we had to do was hook up the mic? Well, that took a half an hour. You know, that can turn into the biggest crisis, or it can be like we're laughing hysterically because we just spoke out loud. This is what it's going to be like, and then it just happens. So totally. I think, yeah, like stay light, stay tuned in, listen, lean into like if things are slowing you down, slow down. Like don't resist, but instead, yeah, go with it and stay connected to the people who keep you sane. Yeah. Keep checking in with them.
I guess I would say Gemini season, I would say practical note, look like how you want to be perceived. Because I feel like in Gemini, we are a bit on the surface. And I think that in this time, there is like a strong association with what people see on the surface with who you are. And I think if you're fully showing up, you should look like how you think you should look. So if that means, you know, dressing to the nines every day in Gemini season so that you're seen as that person that you know that you are, then do it. Like, go the extra mile to embody what it is that you want to live. Like, and that qualifies you to then show up and be a part of the stories that are the satisfying experiences that matter to you, because what? You took a risk to adventure with an open heart as a unique, extreme version of yourself maybe, but one that qualifies you to go down these wormholes that might take you someplace you never knew could fit you so well. And I think that's another gift that Gemini can bring us. We can just be like, oh, whoa, this is a whole new life. Yeah. And it fits really well. It feels really good. But if you're just in like gray sweatpants and whatever, you know, like, but you're trying to be like a light worker that's known for being that beacon, there's a mismatch there. So like show up and embodiment, I would say, in Gemini season. And I think also, yeah, a daily practice is really important because you've got to be together. You've got to give yourself the benefit of coming into every day as yourself, not as somebody that's running fear-based programs that are coming from the collective unconscious or that are coming from your family line that you have to still clear. Like, if those are the major patterns and thought forms that are running your show, yeah, it's gonna seem like this is a really scary time to be alive. Yeah. But if you have a nice, warm, deep connection with your truth, then that's what you feel. And you see all this around, and then, yeah, you can be that lighthouse. You can be that person in the room that's not freaking out And just by being who you are is holding space to not freak out. And that can change a whole situation from panic to, oh, we found a resolution.
Yeah.
Just like the audio. So
Exactly. And I think flexibility is the number one thing I would say is right now, like how Sarah said, don't take it so serious. But I think in this flexibility, it's the flexibility with the allowing yourself to not allow some sort of invisible rule set, limiting beliefs. This is very Sarah Shadow Work School. Limit you from finding the embodiment that right now, if you want to wear that or you want to be that way or you want to do that, it makes you so you can find and search in the hunger to understand who you are fully. That you're going to have to be flexible through this. Like there are wormhole bends to this reality at this moment, but I think there's an illusion that I have to be this way. That's limiting myself from expressing myself. I think that we already have learned boundaries with Scorpio season that went through on this pretty much this whole decade. So I think that we all already know where the electric fence is or the cliff is. So I don't think that the flexibility extends to beyond that because I think we all already know where that is. So it's like, but allowing yourself to not worrying about what other people think about you and your choices you're making, as long as you're just showing up and you're showing up in a space where they can feel energy off you that feels like, yeah, you feel good. Like we're easier to read now than ever. You know what I mean? Like you cannot bullshit anybody anymore.
we're all psychic.
Except for yourself.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I think that Sarah brings up a good point. Like, but I think that Dylan and Sarah's combined opinion here of how he says showing up embodied in the stuff that you are to make sure that you really are in that energy with people that are like-minded, that are supporting around you together is going to be an ultimate ability to really thrive right now and to really, I think, get rid of this second guessing that's causing the biggest anchor of limitation in the reality so much, because it's an anchor second guessing. If you're second guessing yourself, then that means whatever's forward doesn't even have enough energy for you to manifest forward, because that's just an anchor you're trolling the whole time.
Right. So like take a risk.
Well, I think this is where we have to be flexible and really embody fully into our true self and take the things that we're second guessing and really dive deep into embodying them and going, okay, like I'm going to come at it from who I really am. I'm not going to allow this set of rule sets, this patriarchy idea, what people tell you, family situations that Dylan brought up that could be also deeply subconscious, and really find a way with a practice. Like I've noticed in the mornings has been the most hardest for me, or getting up and getting the day. Like there's been a lot of I feel like frustrated, like, gosh, and I'm late and I got to put those shoes on. And it's like, and then I literally look in the mirror every morning and I go, you're tripping on stupid crap right now. And then that's my practice right now, is like immediately going, every day it's a little bit less. It might not be perfect. I think that's the other part, is forgiveness of yourself for so many things of this flexible time. Is like your practice might not be perfect right away, but it might get just one little inch better. So even today, it got 5 minutes better to where I was frustrated 5 minutes left today in the morning. But I know tomorrow morning, bam, I already know, okay, maybe it's 20 minutes less, and maybe I'll get to maybe a minute now or something like that. But just by doing that, that's going to make you embody yourself more. But I think that with this Neptune's where it's all at, I would say at this point. And it's forgiveness. And it's forgiveness in yourself. It's forgiveness in others. And actually, Steve Harvey put up a video today. It said, being unforgiving is poison. I thought that was an interesting way to look at things. Now, some people, of course, have had traumatic things in their life happen to them. So, it's kind of hard to forgive somebody who killed your daughter or your son or anything like that. But there is something about this letting go of so much and just coming into a form of forgiveness. And I think it's more internal than external right now, it feels like. Like, I feel like if you look at the actual forgiving part, you'll see a different side of the story right now that you didn't see before, that actually opens up to infinite, amazing adventure and possibilities, opposed to this very limited story that this is what it was. Like, and I think if we are flexible enough to see the forgiving sides of everything right now and turn rocks over, we're going to find amazing new situations. And those are going to be the deepest ones inside of ourselves. So.
And I just want to add to that, because I think that what you said about forgiveness is really important. And I think it's really important to know that forgiveness is not an overnight thing. It's not like you make a decision and it's done. Forgiveness to me is a lot like grief, where it is its own teacher. So it teaches you. You don't plan when you're going to process grief. You don't plan when you're ready to forgive. But I think at least setting the intention or setting the prayer or speaking it out loud and just saying, I'm open and willing to learn how I can. I'm open and willing to learn if it is possible, like I'm open to learning that or seeing that. So it's not necessarily saying, like you said, it's probably sometimes really hard, but I think that there is so much power in that, and that just that invitation to try, that willingness to try.
And I think that's why the daily practice that somebody finds in their life is important, because I love how you bring up how grief is not something, you just don't wake up in the morning and go, I'm ready to grieve.
Right.
Or I'm ready to forgive right away, which is kind of religious oriented, which is why if it just becomes kind of this thing that you just do, it just kind of doesn't feel the same, because you're kind of in a space where it's our ego that reaches this place where I think of surrender, because the last thing a warrior thinks about is surrendering with the white flag, right? But it's when you're either about to die and now you start thinking about your kids and your significant other, and you start seeing, you get to a point to where you were not just ready to just wake up that morning and do that, right? It always is a moment where you reach a space, whether it's grieving over a death or grieving over just a loss of a relationship or something not going the way your ego wanted to. There's this place that we have to kind of be forgiving of ourselves, that we got there to forgive. We have to, that we can't even teach ourselves, but we had to get there somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Forgiveness is an ego death. If you want to grow, start forgiving.
Yeah.
See what happens.
It's true.
It's true.
Well, thanks so much. Make sure that you join us on highvibe.tv. I want to thank Sarah, Paasch, and Dylan, the Spirit Advisor. Where can everyone find you on socials and stuff? Good. The Spirit Advisor. Right?
I'm the Spirit Advisor on Instagram, thespiritadvisor.com, highvibe.tv.
Yeah.
And Sarah, where are you at?
Yep, just sarahpaasch.com or Sarah_Paasch. Paasch. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, or High Vibe TV.
Yep. And click on Lightworker School, because both their courses are amazing on there. Shadow work with Sarah, and Dylan's doing, everything under the sun. So.
It's going to be called Ascension Mastery.
Ascension Mastery.
And it's
From
your
the ground up.
toolkit for developing a practice. And we're giving you a bunch of stuff that you can pick and choose based on how it resonates with you.
Well, I appreciate you both being here in my circle, in our circle. That's the best way to describe it. Because we've all been looking after each other for months. It's been kind of weird how it just kind of all went.
That Leo new moon started it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good.
But,
Great.
and we all love you out there. Thank you so much for being in the chat, everybody, and your questions. And again, this will be up on YouTube, of course, but if you want to watch Deep Astrology, just go to highvibe.tv and you can purchase it, or be a subscriber and you'll get it part of the package with about 100 videos a week, so that are all fresh and new. It's not like it's regurgitated stuff. So thank you so much for being here. Love you all very much, and we will see you all later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.